I am Parthiv Patel, and I am event organizer for Vichar Manthan team in Leicester. Vichar Manthan is a platform for churning ideas and thoughts for earnest thinkers to live, learn, and share Hindu values. Before we begin, I just want to invite Sonia to the stage to just share some of the social media aspects of what we actually doing to promote Vichar Manthan. Sonia.
Namaste. My name is Sonia Jesrani, and I'm the social media lead for Vichar Manthan. As you may know, we have a variety of social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Who here has a smartphone? Can you raise your hand? Can you get your phones out? Who has Facebook as well? Not many people? Okay, go onto Facebook and type in Vichar Manthan. Like us, and share us with your friends. We share posts on upcoming events. We share location, articles to do with upcoming events as well. I hope to see more likes by the end of this, and share us with your friends. Tell your friends about us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Yeah, so just to let you know, we actually have Sonia streaming on Facebook tonight, which is a live stream, so just for people that could not make the event and to be with us live here. So today our experts will be debating whether Parliament ought to decriminalize prostitution, explore what a Hindu civilization approach would be to prostitution. Should sex work be legal from a Hindu lens? Should sex workers have legal rights? Is prostitution legal or illegal in the United Kingdom? What are the facts surrounding sex in the United Kingdom? To answer these controversial and complicated questions, I am joined today by experts in the field to debate these complex issues. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our speakers this evening. Neela Jasrani is a member of our Vichar Manthan team and will chair the event. She has been researching this topic for over 12 months. She has read countless articles and books, watched a lot of documentaries, debated with a number of people to gather her views. Neela understands the complexity and the legal issues surrounding this topic and is passionate about promoting this topic. Sachinanda, on the far left, is also our Vichar Manthan team member. He has a PhD in political philosophy and has a keen interest in Indian history. He will be speaking about how Hindu civilization has approached this difficult issue throughout history. He believes that by understanding the approach of bygone kingdoms, we may be able to learn something today. Laura Lee has joined us today from Scotland. She is a member of the Sex Workers Alliance in Ireland. She campaigns for the decriminalisation of sex work in accordance with international guidelines, a regular writer for the Huffington Post and prolific blogger. Laura speaks on many events to debunk a lot of the myths around sex work to increase awareness. She fights for sex work to be recognized as valid labor, with the safety concerns alongside that struggle. And finally, we have Neil Bannister. Neil is a solicitor and works for the Crown Prosecution Service based in East Midlands. He has assisted the police in a number of major criminal investigations in a number of fields. Also, Neil earlier this year stood as candidate in the elections for the post of Police and Crime Commissioner for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, coming second with over 58,000 votes. Neil is also a district councillor serving the residents of Harborough District Council. He regularly talks about the work of the CPS to various community groups around Leicestershire. So without further ado, can I ask Neil to come up on the stage and give us a legal status of the subject that we're talking about today. Thank you.
Namaste, and thank you very much, Patun, for the introduction. And I thank Vishal Manthan for the invitation to come and speak at this event. I've been asked specifically to talk about the law in relation to prostitution. I was also invited just to give a sort of general overview with regard to the impact of prostitutions within the community. What is prostitution? There is a legal definition. Prostitution is where an individual offers and provides sexual services for financial gain or the promise of financial gain. And in the United Kingdom, particularly in England and Wales, prostitution in itself is not illegal. It is not a criminal offence. For example, if in the privacy of my own home, I wanted to offer sexual services for financial gain, yes, that would make me a prostitute, but I'm not committing any criminal offence by undertaking that exchange and that activity. However, there are a number of criminal offences which are linked to the provision of sexual services for financial gain, such as the keeping of a brothel or controlling a prostitute. And prostitution has a close affinity with a host of other important social issues, in particular crime, drugs, sexual equality, poverty, and health. And no doubt these will be themes during the course of your debate tonight. But if I may just give a very brief overview in respect of the criminal offences which are associated or linked with the provision of prostitution. I'll begin with soliciting. It is an offence for a person aged 18 or over, regardless of whether they are male or female, persistently to loiter or solicit in a street or public place for the purpose of prostitution. And the punishment in England and Wales in respect of the offence of soliciting is a fine. The maximum fine for a first offence, the absolute maximum is £2,000, and thereafter up to £4,000. You would very, very rarely ever see fines imposed to those levels. That is the absolute maximum. The maximums were increased in March of 2015. Section 33A of the Sexual Offences Act 1956 is the basis of the offence of keeping a brothel for prostitution. It's an offence for a person to keep or to manage or to act or to assist in the management of a brothel to which a person would resort to for the practice involving prostitution, regardless if other practices are also being undertaken at that establishment. For example, there may be an establishment that advertises massage services, but it also involves prostitution. That would count as a brothel, and upon the appropriate evidence being established and a prosecution, again, the punishment in this occasion has a maximum of a 7-year sentence of imprisonment. The current law relating to offences associated with prostitution was reviewed in 2002, and Parliament passed the Sexual Offences Act 2003, subsequently amended. But again, there's a number of offences created under the Sexual Offences Act of 2003 relating to the provision of prostitution. And it's within that act that Parliament decided to rehearse and impose the offence colloquially known as curb crawling, where it's an offence for a person in a street or public place to solicit another for the purpose of obtaining that other's sexual services as a prostitute. And for the purposes of a public place or a street, that will also include someone's own car that happens to be in the street or public place. And the punishment is a fine, again, up to a maximum of £4,000. Section 52 of the Sexual Offences Act creates the offence of causing or inciting prostitution for gain. It's an offence for a person to intentionally cause or incite another person to become a prostitute in any part of the world, and does so with the expectation of financial gain for himself or a third person. So this would relate to somebody who is persuading individuals to provide sexual services anywhere in the world in respect of that person's own financial gain, or indeed for the financial gain of a third person. For example, an individual may be making an arrangement to send girls out to, for example, say Dubai for a big party, and has persuaded, caused or incited those young women to go to that particular party, and the person that's hosting the party in Dubai will be providing financial gain, but there will also be an exchange of money between the person that provides the women to the person that is hosting the party. The punishment there for causing or inciting prostitution for gain is a maximum sentence of 7 years, but it's double that, 14 years, if any person that is involved in the prostitution is aged under 18 years. Section 53 creates the offence of controlling prostitutes for gain. A person commits an offence if he intentionally controls the activities of another person relating to that person's prostitution, again, in any part of the world, and does so in the expectation of gain for himself or a third person. Maximum sentence in England, Wales, 7 years imprisonment, 14 years if the person so controlled is under the age of 18. Section 53A creates the offence of paying for sexual services of a prostitute who has been subjected to force. And again, it's irrelevant as to where in the world the sexual services are to be provided. And offences under Section 52, the causing or inciting prostitution for gain or controlling prostitutes for gain, are what are described as lifestyle offences. The law describes lifestyle offences as those where somebody obtains a financial benefit as a reason of their criminal activity. And accordingly, that will trigger proceeds of crime proceedings in the Crown Court upon conviction. So in addition to any sentence of imprisonment that the person convicted may receive, they're also subject to having their financial benefit, which is linked to their criminal activity, taken off them as well. Finally, I want to mention Section 59A of the Sexual Offences Act 2003. This is the offence of trafficking people for sexual exploitation. This is where a person commits an offence if he intentionally arranges or facilitates the arrival in or entry into the UK or another country of another person, or the travel within the UK or another country, or the departure from the UK or another country for the purposes of sexual exploitation. And if a person who arranges or facilitates a UK national, he commits the offence regardless of where in the world the arranging takes place. So if a UK national in another part of the world, again, if I use the example of Dubai, makes the arrangements to bring prostitutes into the United Kingdom or elsewhere, provided that individual is a UK national, they will be committing this offence. If he's not a UK national, the law indicates that the offence is committed if there is entry in or departure from the United Kingdom itself. That carries punishment of up to 14 years imprisonment. So that is a very general overview of the law in relation to the criminal offences that are linked to prostitution. I've also been asked to very briefly talk about the impact of prostitution on the community. And as with all matters of sexuality, prostitution continues to be debated on both social and moral levels. And you will be listening to a debate tonight in respect of that aspect. Opponents of prostitution and moral conservatives believe the practice is intrinsically morally corrupt and a challenge to family values, therefore regarding a ban to be justified in the name of public morality. And many religious groups adopt this position, which adds another aspect to the debate. However, there are those that argue that prostitution is not a matter of public morality, but a matter of private morality. And many who adopt that position would necessarily also argue for legal regulation of prostitution. But currently, prostitution has this quasi-criminal status, and because of that, it's been closely associated with organized crime, poverty, drugs, child abuse, and of course, people trafficking. All these aspects have a huge impact on the community at large, with considerable resources having to be devoted to tackle these issues. And following the fall of the Iron Curtain and the breakup of Yugoslavia, there's been an increase in the so-called white slave trade from Eastern Europe and Russia, along with a general influx of organized crime, with many women thought to be living as virtual slaves. Because prostitutes have large numbers of sexual partners, they are more likely to have sexually transmitted infections, and they become vectors for spreading these infections, which adds a public health dimension to the debate. Prostitutes, sex workers, are more likely to be subjected to offences of violence, including serious assault and rape. But research indicates that prostitutes and sex workers are much less likely to report such crimes against them. So in conclusion, prostitution in itself is not illegal, but all the activities that surround it is, such as the keeping of a brothel, soliciting, exploiting, coercing, controlling, and the trafficking of prostitutes. That criminal activity brings a host of social problems. The law is changing to reflect the vulnerability of the sex worker and to some extent to try and build in some protections. If society became of the view that to solicit a prostitute or sex worker and allow them to be in a regulated business liable to the usual taxation regime, would that still stop vulnerable women, men, and children from being exploited, controlled, coerced, and trafficked? That is a question, no doubt, you will be exploring tonight. Thank you very much for listening.